Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and we're reading Saturnastra Chalon. This is chapter 14. Chalon's dream continued. A week passed and the girl was still not making progress, and frowning she said, "If only we had the 370. And it was then when Chalon said to her using his telepathy, "There is no need to fret about that IBM computer. In a decade or two it will become obsolete." "I don't think we will have a decade or two, that's the way things are going," said the girl. And the doctor saw her talking to herself but chose to do nothing. He had other concerns on his mind. As long as the program progressed, nothing else mattered. And Charlotte said, "And if you get the computer, you will not be able to complete the program in the allotted time. Since I do not want to see the fire, I will give you the final line of code you are missing, and you can add it when they finally give you the computer you are looking for." The girl said, "I have pen and paper." And Chalon said, "The code is do equal J, comma, column." And Chalon gave her a long string of codes. And during the dream he was usually announcing observer. And he could also be a character, but he preferred to distance himself from the action whenever possible. A month in the dream world passed, or was it a year? The passage of time in dreams is very hard to measure. And the alien spaceship did make an appearance, and it burned an entire city to cinders, and it disappeared before the fighter jets could yet get to it. And the second time it showed up, instead of using an element, the ship shot a red beam of light, and it completely destroyed absolutely everything, right down to the smallest bacteria. All that was left was a crater. And the scientists went to decide to investigate the type of energy beam, and whatever it was radioactive. And they assumed that the aliens were now using atomic energies, and if they could build a device to disrupt the core, that they might be able to destroy the ship before it fired its weapon. And this solution was at least more feasible than mobilizing the entire army. Still, it will have to take some time to develop an anti-alien defense system, and the city that had been struck by the red beam was St. Petersburg. Needless to say, the Soviets were not pleased, and while the scientists were investigating the irradiated city and its surroundings, the spaceship made a surprise visit, and instead of shooting a red beam of light like they had expected, it shot a green light instead. And aside from giving the scientists a terrible fright, it did not do much of anything. This return was a new development, and again the spaceship returned, and each time shooting different beams of light at different wavelengths. And meanwhile the girl had completed the code, and all what that was left was to punch in the data to see the computer shout out the pattern of future attacks. And a team of 5,000 was working on that, and each day the new computers were added to the main system. And on that day, and one day the girl was talking to her doctor, and the doctor asked a pertinent question in everyone's mind: "What do you think they want?" "Isn't it obvious they want to destroy your life as we know it?" said the girl. "If that's the case, then why the beams of light that don't do anything?" asked the doctor. "Who knows, maybe," said the girl, and she looked at Chalon, who shrugged his shoulders in response, and he remembered in the dream something about the divine spark. And then he said to the girl, the spaceship was to free the divine spark of humans, and thus making them hollow vessels devoid of any spiritual matter. "And what is your imaginary friend saying?" asked the doctor, and at this point he was ready to believe just about anything. "He says that the aliens want to destroy our spiritual matter," said the girl. "That is nonsense. There is no such thing as the soul," said the doctor, laughing. The girl shrugged and then said, "Just because you don't believe in the bullet, it doesn't make it any less real when you drop dead because of it." And the following day, the alien ship returned to the ruins of St. Petersburg, and by now the entire Soviet army was waiting for it, and they shot the spaceship down before it could do anything. And a minute later, another ship appeared in the same spot, or the one before, and it too was shot down again and again. And by the 67th ship, it was starting to get ridiculous, and the doctor who was watching the scene on the monitor commented, "If such an advanced civilization, why does it keep doing the same thing, expecting different results? I don't know, it could be an automated system, and perhaps it will keep running the same script till it completes its prime directive," said the girl. "And how long do you think it will take before their computer crashes or it changes into a different gambit?" asked the doctor. "Judging by their technology and cloaking skills and disregard for their own resources, I would say that we will be here all day, all week, or an eternity or two," said the girl. "Because like the aliens have already used up like 67 ships and they keep running the same script." The general who was in the conference room said, "If that were to happen, then it will be the end of the human race as we know it." After a couple of hours of this skirmish, and as Chispa allowed to make shooting them with rockets a little bit more difficult, and the pilot then provided enough cover for the spaceship to fire its white beam, and it also targeted the tanks as well, and the Americans watching the scene on the monitor looked quite alarmed, and they called up on the Soviets to see if they were one piece, and the Soviet generals started emitting guttural sounds and roars, and it was only 2 days later that they heard from Moscow. The armed soldiers had gone completely insane, and they had lost all semblance of humanity and were eating one another like one of those bad zombie movies. And the only difference was that the zombies were attacking each other as well, and it was a pretty gruesome scene that they had returned to. And it was around this point that Chalon had tapped out of the dream, and he had a vague memory of forcing his eyes to open for a second before going to sleep again. He'd be like, oh god, this dream is getting stupid, I'm out. And whenever he was dreaming, he did not have a decent enough control over the nature of his dream, and most of the time he was a passenger on a train or an unwilling participant. And some of his siblings, like my two, were more active dreamers, and it took a bit of a training to manage a certain degree of control. And in the dream world, one had 3 basic skills to master. There was Titanology, cinematography, and terminology. The last one was the most basic, and with proper mental focus one could decide to start having nightmares, and this was the ground basis of the other 2 skills. And how does one train to not have nightmares? It is simple, one has to decide not to have them, and once you decide, the brain does its magic thing, and despite what people imagine, one has plenty of control over one's body. The problem arises when one lets the automatic system and the amygdala make most of the decisions. The brain is a lazy second passenger, and if one doesn't make the effort to achieve the desired outcome, the brain will just not make it happen. It all boils down to free will. The second important skill to master is Titanology, and if one finds oneself in a dangerous dream environment, one can summon allies to your help, and they take the form of familiar figures. And the first person to master Titanology have familiars based on TV show characters, and the final skill is cinematography and focus on manipulating the dream world. And the skills were the backbone of what later became the practice of vocalizing one's aura, and the vocalization of auras has become second nature to us, so much so that Titanology and its other children's skills are no longer practiced or even remembered. Still, it is something good to be reminded of, especially if a person suffers from nightmares from time to time. Not that nightmares or dreams are common occurrence among our people. Dreaming has become an optional activity, like eating. Still, there is also something refreshing about dreaming from time to time. And Chalon ruminated on this and many other nonsensical dreams he had had before, and eventually he got out of the bath and he decided to take his graveyard shift. And the night was rather cool at the moment, and a cold breeze from the north had arrived to society. And as such, the temperature was 73 degrees. Still, the gust of wind made the temperature feel colder. At first, Chalon had worn something a little cooler, and the second he got out of the warm tent, a cold breeze grazed his abdomen. And trembling, he returned his hand to put on something that covered a little bit more of skin. And he put it on red robes with a thick black sash tied in front of it. And these robes were worn over white robes, with a long frilly white elbow on the neck. And over the top, he wore an orange jacket with red ornamental patterns. And the red rose mimicked the patterns, but in yellow and black, and the sleeves had 2 large decorated black buttons. And the hat was orange and black with yellow feathers. And he took out a shovel and a pickaxe, and he smiled and noted that he saw his own reflection in the mirror. And as he was heading out, one of the clowns commented, "Not quite the sort of disguise." And the shovel and pickaxe alone was proof enough that what Chalon was up to, and he was coming for traveling merchant caravans to raid the cemetery. And this practice became more common during times of war, and traditionally they only targeted graves of their own ancestor. And it was part of their burial ritual for the dead to dream and to wait till they were summoned about by their living relatives. And it was for this reason that when a person died, their death was explained to the children as a prolonged sleeping spell. And to aid in the resurrection, the bodies were never cremated. Spirits tended to click onto this world a lot more if there was a physical manifestation of them left in the world. And this is part of the reason why the Egyptians preserved their bodies of the dead. Time, bro?
40 minutes.
Since it was warming season, the clan was in desperate need of one of their ancient ancestors. And the ancestors were a capricious lot, and only a strong person could make them rise from their graves. And it would also take a bit of persuasion to get them to help out for the cause of the living. And it is common for necromancers to be up to similar games. Still, without free will, a spectre was no better than a zombie. And as far as spirit goes, the stronger their free will, the stronger their physical power. And it was common for novice necromancers to force resurrect a fellow only for the spirit to pass on passes on, no earthly force can summon them back to the world of the living. And Chalon made his way out of the camp and into the entrance of the city, and the night watch was mainly located in front of the Makeshift Theater. And there was not a lot of people roaming the street, and those that did roam were on foot. And they were not too keen on going on horseback because the local ordinances forbade noises out so late at night, and even the guards had to abide by such a rule, and the plated armors were traded for soft-sounding leather boots. And this was decreased inoffensive capabilities. Still, the night guards were more rogues than soldiers, and whenever there was anyone who dared to disturb the peace, they were never heard from again. And this is just a tad exaggeration, and they were simply thrown in jail and no questions asked, and everything would get sorted out in the morning. And one of those night guards noticed Chalon speak as in trouble, and then decided to follow, and he whispered, "Doing a little digging." And Chalon stopped and gently placed both items on the floor, and then he took out his board to write, "Don't worry, these are just for show. I plan to dig with my hands." "There's no need to go overboard," said the night guard, grinning. "Whatever business you have can wait till the morning." "I suppose it can," wrote Chalon, "but I must make the effort to make the best use of my time. And if I leave this till the morning, then I won't have time tomorrow to get everything else done." "Makes sense," said the guard, and he started leaving when he stopped and said, "You are not headed to the cemetery, are you?" Chalon nodded in response. "Has someone died? You need permission in order to bury an outsider in our territory," said the night guard. "I'm not burying someone, I am unburying them," wrote Chalon. "Ha, now that's a first," said the night guard, laughing. "It has nothing to do with grave robbing, I assure you," wrote Chalon. And he added, "It's basically a member of our clan." "I was not aware that your people were buried here," said the night guard, growing curious. "This is an ancient graveyard, and it is common for us to open them from time to time to add items from living relatives," wrote Chalon. And this was indeed true, and over the course of a week he had acquired some items to offer to the ancient dead, and the last one he had acquired were a bouquet and bottles of blood. And the information Chalon had provided had sealed his fate, and the guard, now fully committed, said, I will come with you to observe, and I must make certain you not disturb any other graves with your heretical rituals." "The rights of Artsy were not always predominant," wrote Chalon, "and things change with time, as must everything else," said the night guard solemnly. So that he went to it to make certain that he wasn't going to be like disturbing other graveyards, you know. The night guard went by the name of Henry Binet, and he was 70 years old, of medium stature, and with short blonde hair and brown eyes, and his family specialized in making champagne. And since he was the youngest of a family of 7, nobody expected much of him, and to prove himself he had tried to become a knight. And he had acknowledged in dexterity and his prime failure in his inability to get along well with animals, and for reasons he did not understand, the horses seemed to always shy away from him, and one time he had a nasty fall while trying to ride a horse, and he had surprised his mount by jumping on top of it, and the horse went on one of those frenzied jumping fits, and it was quite a thrill for the stable boy watching the show, not so much for Henry. And after getting a nice kick in the forehead, Henry had given up on the whole idea of knighthood or even riding a horse, and those that did not ride on horses were considered foot soldiers, and as such the best salary that Henry could aspire to was of a night watchman. Time, bro?
10 minutes.
And it was common knowledge that bad things always occur at night, and it was for this reason that there were a lot more night guards than regular guards. And Henry had never been much of a morning person, so he fell right into night duty quite well. And curious by nature, he jumped at the opportunity to bring some excitement to his bored assistant, and Henry took his lantern closer to get a better look at Chalon, and under the light he noticed Chalon's dark complexion and black eyes, and under the light Chalon's eyes had a faint green tint to them, and it reminded Henry of the glow emitted by animals in the darkness, and when he was younger he used to hunt animals with his father, and Henry lowered the lantern as not to look into Chalon's eyes. He then said, "Well, carry on then." Chalon did as he requested of him, and together they walked towards the graveyard, and there was about 4 graveyards in the city, and there were about 6 others in the outskirts of the town, and as was to be expected of a growing city, space had become somewhat of a premium, and those that could afford it had their families buried within the protected walls, and meanwhile the others had to bury their dead outside their walls or in their back garden. And it wasn't illegal to bury your dead in the garden. It still wasn't encouraged either, and whenever a family moved into one of such houses, it was common that the priest of Artsy would move both the families and the headstones to the outskirts of the city. So that's why there are like so many haunted houses there, because like it was just cheaper to bury your stuff in your backyard than to like buy a plot of land in the cemetery, which was expensive. But then if you sold the house, the new person of the house, you gotta tell them, oh yeah, there's also like my grandma, my great grandma, and like a bunch of other people like buried it. Hope you don't mind, bye. That is your problem, bye. The Great Chalon was visiting was located to the west of the palace, and to the west was the main barracks, and it was the only grave that had heavy security, and the King's and Queen's of society were buried there, in addition to other people of noteworthy history, and there was even plenty of other graves, but the names were faded, and a few only had small plaques instead of stone monuments. Chalon came to the entrance, and he noticed that both guards were sleeping while standing up, and Henry did too notice and was about to wait them when Chalon placed his finger to his mouth to urge him to be silent, and Chalon placed his hand on the iron bar of the door, and as was tradition with all cemeteries, the door creaked as it opened, like, like all cemetery doors, they gotta go like, and Chalon started opening it very slowly, and each time he started to make certain that the guards had not woken up, and one gave a big snore and woke himself up, and he mumbled something, and then he returned to sleep. And he was half reclining against the bar, half reclining against his halberd, and it was in the most comfortable way of sleeping, but it worked just fine for a quick nap. And Henry whispered, shaking his head sadly, I swear one of these days you're going to wake up dead. And Chalon did not inquire why Henry said this, and he was still busy trying to silence the open door, and when he managed to slip in, he breathed a sigh of relief. A couple of years ago, there was a douche who was of the habit of stabbing sleeping night guards, and he would only target guys who were alone, and ever since then, night guards only bothered to let their guard down when they came in pairs. And Henry did have a partner, but he was visiting his lady lover, and he would not return to his patrol route for another 2 hours. Time?
4 minutes.
I think I read enough for today. Bye-bye.